Hello, and glad you can join us. Here's what's happening. Next moves after the U.S. doubles up on steel and aluminum tariffs.
We are in intensive discussions right now with the Americans.
Canada readies reprisals if negotiations fail.
It was stressful. Kids were crying.
Frustration as wildfires force thousands to flee.
They have the benefit of having experienced last year's final.
Plus anticipation and Stanley Cup anxiety in Edmonton.
CTV National News with Sandy Ronaldo.
Intensive discussions are underway in Ottawa over how to respond to Donald Trump's doubling of steel and aluminum tariffs to 50%, a presidential proclamation that will create chaos in the supply chain, job losses, negative economic fallout, and not just in this country, but in the U.S. as well. CTV's Rachel Aiello now on the pressure Canadian companies are facing and the calls for Ottawa to act quickly. Rachel.
Sandy, it's not just big steel and aluminum manufacturers that are being hit hard today by U.S. President Donald Trump's doubling of tariffs. It's small businesses like this Ottawa roofing product company, too. Offload and Phil LaPlante's family-owned steel roof and siding company has been selling into the U.S. for decades.
It's definitely scary.
But now, the nearly century-old employer of more than 300 Canadians is facing hard choices with a portion of its business being directly hit by Trump's 50% tariff on steel and aluminum.
We can't swallow a 50% increase, and the customers in the U.S. won't pay 50% more for the same product.
Across the country are also feeling crushed by the rising cost of aluminum cans.
The things we use to make our product are just all kind of getting more expensive, and it's particularly acute for small independent breweries because, you know, our core product ends up in an aluminum can.
McJanet wants to see governments tap into all options for relief. So far, the federal government won't say if it'll retaliate.
We will make sure that we impose maximum pain to the U.S. while having minimum pain, minimum impact to Canadians.
This after the Prime Minister noted the counter tariffs already in place.
We've acted strong. Those are in place. We will take some time, not much, some time, because we are in intensive discussions right now with the Americans.
But Conservative and NDP leaders want Canada to hit the U.S. right back.
Deal or no deal, if it's coming soon, well, President Trump wouldn't do what he's doing.
He better be quick. Because industry and jobs are at stake right now.
The domestic steel industry directly employs around 23,000 Canadians, and the aluminum industry close to 10,000, with both sectors indirectly supporting tens of thousands of additional jobs. Sandy?
All right, Rachel Aiello. Now, the U.S. President's Commerce Secretary was on Capitol Hill today, briefing senators on the Republicans' proposed big, beautiful bill, a landmark tax bill. But he also addressed the tariff increase and mentioned Canada. CTV's Washington Bureau Chief Joy Malbon was listening in closely. Okay, Joy, what did Lutnick have to say?
Well, to be honest, Sandy, the Commerce Secretary, he testified before the Senate committee, but Republicans there are all in when it comes to the president's tariff policy. But New Hampshire Senator challenged Howard Lutnick about the devastating impact that steel tariffs will have on businesses in her state. They rely on Canadian steel imports to build aerospace parts. Now, the senator said that businesses are paying more and waiting more, something like 2.5 years for steel. He didn't really answer. Have a listen.
The big issue is you can't fight a war without steel and aluminum production in America. You have to be able to make it. If you don't have the ability to make your own steel and aluminum, you can't fight a war. And that is what the president's doing. He's trying to make sure that we make sufficient steel and aluminum.
All right, so Howard Lutnick staying the course. Let's talk now, Joy, about Donald Trump's big, beautiful bill, because he needs the Senate to pass the legislation. But hanging over him, criticism by Elon Musk, that simply isn't going away, right? Musk calling the bill a disgusting abomination. So how's Donald Trump handling that?
The president is ignoring the latest Musk drama, and he's not taking the bait, and he's not making this the story. After Musk went ballistic on his bill that an independent congressional report, Sandy said, would increase the national debt by something like $2.4 trillion and cut health care to millions of Americans. Now, Musk tweeted that bankrupting America is not okay, and he's advocating some of these senators to kill the bill. He's even threatening Republicans who voted for it, and he's got the money to campaign against them come the midterms. Now, Speaker Mike Johnson, who's trying to get that bill over the finish line, he's downplaying it all. Take a listen.
It surprised me, frankly, and I don't take it personal. I think he's flat wrong. I think he's way off on this, and I've told him as much, and I've said it publicly and privately. I'm very consistent in that. But am I concerned about the effect of this on the midterms? I'm not. Let me tell you why. Because when the big, beautiful bill is done and signed into law, every single American is going to do better.
Musk is a bit of a wild card for Republicans, Sandy, and they're going to need all of them to pass the president's spending and tax cut bill by July. Sandy?
All right, Joy, thank you. Now, Donald Trump says that Russia is going to respond to Ukraine's attack on its airfields. Trump made the comments on social media after speaking by phone with Vladimir Putin. Ukraine released new footage of that attack today, showing images from drones landing on military aircraft, including Russian spy planes and bombers. The major drone strike on Sunday targeted 4 air bases inside Russia. Ukraine says it used more than 100 drones and hit dozens of Russian planes. Newly released satellite images show the scope of the damage, with destroyed jets sitting on the tarmac. Well, with uncertainty over Donald Trump's tariffs and a softening Canadian economy, the Bank of Canada made a decision today to keep its trend-setting interest rate steady at 2.75%. CTV's senior political correspondent Mike Couture takes a look at that and more. Hey, Mike.
Well, Sandy, Canada's central banker Tiff Macklem says they're being less forward-looking than usual, and it's all because of the unpredictable trade war.
Uncertainty remains high.
With perhaps the understatement of the year, the governor of the Bank of Canada had that explanation for why interest rates are staying at 2.75%. Citing the doubling of the U.S. tariffs on steel and aluminum, Tiff Macklem said the conflict is being felt in the economy.
It's difficult for businesses that are faced with new rules of the game every week. I'm much worried about households who are worrying about the possibility that they'll lose their job.
The economy hasn't softened, but the bank says it wasn't sharply weaker as the U.S. continued to import goods from Canada. But some economists say there is evidence of the impacts.
We are certainly starting to see interest rates bite. For consumers, where we're seeing increases in the number of consumers unable to make their payments, skipping payments on credit cards and car loans.
The bank says the removal of the federal consumer carbon tax helped bring down inflation by 0.6 of a percentage point. However, economists say it's tough to predict if there will be another interest rate cut this year until the trade war stops.
If we're able to come to a trade agreement relatively quickly, then a lot of this could go away and the Canadian economy could do very well.
Macklem says they are considering the other scenario.
There could be a need for a further reduction in the interest rate if the tariffs continue, if that creates more weakness in the Canadian economy.
The central bank's next rate decision and monetary policy announcement are scheduled for the end of July. Both decisions will be affected by whatever comes out of the White House.
Right.
Sandy?
All right, Mike, thank you. A fast-moving wildfire in La Ronge, Saskatchewan has burned down an historic landmark.
In my home community, I know that we lost a very big piece of history in Robertson's Trading Post, and we've heard of other local businesses and family homes lost yesterday. The devastation's real.
Video captures flames consuming the nearly 60-year-old trading post, destroying hundreds of pieces of Indigenous art and artifacts. The La Ronge Fire Department says it is up against a monster. Across Saskatchewan, some 400 structures have been lost and more than 15,000 people have fled. There are more than 200 active wildfires burning right across the country from British Columbia to Ontario. Now, things are also pretty rough in parts of Manitoba, where thousands have fled and thousands more will likely have to go in the days ahead. CTV's Alex Karpa in Winnipeg touches base with those on the front lines, those on the run.
Evacuations continue in northern Manitoba. Video from the air shows lots of smoke and burnt trees. Video from the ground showing much of the same, a situation seen across most of the northwestern part of the province.
We're scared that we'll lose our homes.
Chief David Monius remains in Pimicikamak Cree Nation and says there are 2 fires on either side of the community, and American firefighters are expected to arrive to help in the fight. A plane has taken the final group of evacuees from Pimicikamak, but Chief Monius says around half a dozen people have chosen to stay behind, even though a mandatory evacuation order was put in place last week.
There is a lot of frustration because you worry about their lives and then you want to focus on this fire and not have to worry about other people and stuff like that.
Well over 17,000 people have been forced to evacuate their homes, with most of them coming to Winnipeg. With the lack of hotel rooms and accommodations in the province, hundreds of evacuees have been sent to Ontario.
It was stressful. Kids were crying. I got sent to the hospital because of the stress that I was having. I was having panic attacks and whatnot.
As wildfires continue to pop up and spread in the north, First Nations leaders here in the province say they don't have proper equipment to fight the fires that continue to devastate communities and displace thousands.
We have nothing but hose for our gardens, rakes for the lawns, nothing to fight fire with, nothing.
And to make things worse, cooler temperatures and forecasted rain for some parts in northern Manitoba will not be enough to help wildfire suppression efforts in a significant way. Sandy?
CTV's Alex Karpa. As an inflamed fire season becomes an annual and dreaded occurrence, there are increased calls to set up a national fire service to help confront the flare-ups. CTV's Quebec Bureau Chief Geneviève Beauchemin now on how quickly this idea can become a reality. Geneviève.
Well, Sandy, some proponents say that at least a new national approach to fighting wildfires could be set up within weeks. 60 Quebec wildland firefighters have now landed in Manitoba on a mission to lend a hand.
And all that because it has been a lower and a quieter than average season here in Quebec.
But much has already been lost to flames.
There was no help from the federal government.
Carrie Lentowitz's home was reduced to dust, along with 24 others in her community in northern Saskatchewan.
We need to have boots on the ground. We need to have those resources predetermined before a disaster happens so we know who's coming in to help.
And some experts say to do that, to fight fires faster, Canada needs a national fire service.
When you do ask for additional help from another province, it takes 3 days for that firefighter or that helicopter or that pump or hose to get to the fire. Sometimes that's 3 days too late.
Others have advocated for years for National Fire Administration, an agency that would ensure quicker coordination of emergency resources across the country.
We would be the only G7 country still without a National Fire Administration, and we have provided government with a turnkey proposal to have the National Fire Administration up and running by the G7 meetings.
That is less than 2 weeks away. Proponents acknowledge the cost of setting up a new approach could be high, but say it's necessary.
If it avoids one disaster, one Jasper, one Lytton, one Fort McMurray, and unfortunately there's going to be more in the future unless we change the way we do business.
The Office of the Federal Minister of Emergency Management says its top priority now is to deal with the current threat of wildfires, but that this is a new government prepared to consider any measure that could enhance public security. Sandy.
Geneviève, thank you for this.
Tonight on CTV National News, I'm Sarah Plowman in Allac, New Brunswick.
I went, that has legs. It filled me with fear.
The growing problem of ticks and the diseases they carry. That story tonight on CTV National News.
It's not just fire season, but tick season, too. Those small parasitic arachnids love warm temperatures, as do we, but nothing to joke about, as ticks carry the risk of dangerous Lyme disease. CTV's Sarah Plowman on a countrywide and spreading public health concern.
Lisa Snyder and Shelley Dixon live a few kilometers away in New Brunswick. Recently, both were bitten by ticks. Neither noticed at first.
I just thought it was a mosquito bite that maybe I had scratched. I went, that has legs. It filled me with fear.
Fear because ticks can carry and transmit diseases like Lyme disease. That's been Keith O'Flaherty's nightmare for the last 6 years.
It took me 2 years to get diagnosed, and then at that point, it's too late.
Once active, he now suffers from a barrage of symptoms like chronic inflammation.
It's been hell living with Lyme.
The risk of tick-borne diseases is growing as ticks become more resilient and spread to new parts of Canada.
As our winters are less cold and shorter, we're allowing ticks to survive and thrive in more northern latitudes.
Last year, more than 5,200 cases of Lyme disease were reported, a new record. The Public Health Agency of Canada says cases are often underreported.
It's more than just Lyme disease, unfortunately. Ticks are nasty, crawly bags of pathogens.
Which is why the biologist and her team are trying to find new ways to test ticks and people for tick-borne illnesses.
We're testing for different pathogens, and we're trying to find out new tests that do it faster, quicker, and cheaper.
Shelley Dixon was prescribed an antibiotic and has since learned her tick had no disease. Lisa Snyder is watching for symptoms. She kept the tick in case she'll need to test it. To protect yourself and pets, always check for ticks. If you find one, remove it immediately. And one expert says it's a good idea to keep the tick in case you need to have it tested. And also consult a healthcare provider in case treatment is needed. Sandy.
Good advice, Sarah. Thank you. 2 crime stories to share with you. Bullets rang out in a Toronto neighborhood overnight. 6 people were shot. 1 person was killed.
Just scary it's happening in our neighborhood.
I don't think we've ever had something as bad as that.
Footage shows emergency crews loading victims into ambulances and a large police presence. The Guns and Gangs Unit, Emergency Task Force, as well as uniformed and plainclothes officers rushing in. Witnesses say they heard up to 20 shots fired. Police are searching for multiple suspects. And Toronto police have arrested 10 people and laid more than 200 charges in connection with a string of violent incidents across the city, including a mass shooting at a pub where 9 people were shot.
Some were shot multiple times. 1 person was shot 6 times and survived. Their strength and resilience has been remarkable.
Police also released surveillance video from inside the pub on the night of the shooting. It shows suspects firing indiscriminately. Many of the arrests and charges stem from incidents between March and May in the Toronto area. Still ahead, a chance for redemption. Excited fans prepare for a Stanley Cup rematch. Meghan, the Duchess of Sussex, is marking her daughter Lilibeth's 4th birthday by sharing some personal photographs. A rare sighting of the little girl seen in this picture with her father, Prince Harry, and now her mom. The child's face is partially covered as the royal couple is known to fiercely guard the privacy of their 2 children. On Instagram, Meghan wrote, "Happy birthday to our beautiful girl. 4 years ago today, she came into our lives, and the day is brighter and better because of it." Well, tonight could end up being brighter and better if the Edmonton Oilers pull off a victory in Game 1 of the Stanley Cup Finals. The Oilers have the home advantage, but a lot is riding on this playoff series rematch against the Florida Panthers. CTV's Kathy Lee is in Edmonton, where energy levels are peaking ahead of the puck drop. Kathy.
Sandy, Oilers fans are hungrier than ever to bring the Stanley Cup home for Edmonton and for the country, especially after losing to the Panthers in Game 7 last year. The fans I spoke to today say the loss was so heartbreaking that they believe this is the year for the Oilers.
It's already in stone. Game 6.
This father-son duo are from New Brunswick. They traveled 10 hours to be in Edmonton for Game 1.
I'm also a Vancouver Canucks fan, but I wasn't going to pass up the chance to come watch a Stanley Cup Finals game.
But they're not the only ones from afar. James Smith and his son are from Connecticut.
We've been Oilers fans since my son turned 5 and got into the game of hockey, and he said, "Who's the best player in the world?" And we said Connor McDavid, and so we immediately became fans of the Oilers.
And I also spoke to a couple from the UK. They documented their journey from across the pond.
From leaving our house, driving to Edinburgh Airport, flying to Toronto, and flying to Edmonton, it was about 23.5 hours.
To see them come this far and get that trophy would just be everything to us. Everything we've seen, all the heartbreak, but then we need this.
This is the 12th time in NHL history teams have faced each other in the finals for a second straight year. This time around, the Oilers head coach says the team is better prepared for the ups and downs of a playoff series compared to last year. If the Oilers win, they will be the first Canadian team to lift Lord Stanley since the Montreal Canadiens in 1993. Sandy.
Fingers crossed, Kathy. Thanks. As the Oilers try to recapture the cup, a piece of memorabilia from the team's glory days is going up for auction. A pair of Wayne Gretzky's worn gloves from the 1988 Stanley Cup run are going up for auction. Sotheby's expects the mitts to fetch between $400,000 and $600,000. CTV National News will be right back. Sometimes it's the little things in life that bring a smile, like taking a nightly walk around the neighborhood. Well, in Vancouver, people out for a stroll stumbled upon a scene that's proving to be a real hoot. And like them, CTV's Andrew Johnson is all aflutter.
In this Vancouver neighborhood, things are looking up.
Yeah, it's an adorable, sweet thing that everyone's into.
It's a feathered attraction, a family of barred owls.
Pretty amazing, like here in the middle of the city.
People first became all aflutter earlier this spring when the two young owlets popped their heads out of a tree hollow. Word traveled fast among the local bird paparazzi.
There's been people with their telescopes and people who are knowledgeable and people like me that know nothing.
And people checking out the owls before taking flight themselves.
I'm actually visiting from London. I'm flying back home in a couple of hours, and she's like, oh, you should go check out these owls in this park.
It probably won't surprise you, these owls have even been given names. The parents, Julio and Julieta. They're Owlets, Hooper, and Julia. Are you sensing a theme?
Owl puns are a hoot, and for those who have been making the daily pilgrimage to Douglas Park, so is the effect the owls are having on the humans beneath them.
Even like teenagers will stop on their bikes and be like, are the owls there? Like, it's like teenagers. Like when I was a teenager, I didn't really care about owls, I'm not gonna lie.
For some here, the reaction has been a bit much.
50 cameras pointing at the nest and then running after them as they fly. I've seen that a lot happening, and I think that that's a little overkill.
The city is asking people to be respectful and keep their distance. Most are content quietly soaking it up with a smile.
It's been fun. It really has.
A simple springtime pleasure this neighborhood won't soon forget. Andrew Johnson, CTV News, Vancouver.
Nice. Thank you for sharing your time with us. I'm Sandy Ronaldo. Your local CTV News is coming up. Have a nice evening.